morning. I'm running about a minute late, I guess not really, for my recap of last night's Bible study. This is Pastor Rick from Stony Lane Church in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. Every Wednesday we have a midweek study from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We do about 30 to 40 minutes of prayer request and praying, and then we do about 45-ish minutes of Bible study. Last night we were here and we covered Proverbs chapter 5, verses 12 to 18. So what I want to do is I want to explain something. In Proverbs chapter 5, Solomon is talking to Rehoboam, his son, and then at one point he uses the word sons in plural, so he's speaking to his multiple sons potentially. In verses 1 through 6 in Proverbs 5, he's cautioning his son. In verses 7 to 14, he's talking about the regrets that you will have if you don't pay attention to my caution. In verses 15 to 19, he's talking about the beauty of what a marriage relationship should be and the procreation of children. And then in verses 20 to 23, which is the end of the chapter, he's saying to beware. He's telling his sons for more things to be aware of. So I'm going to read verses 11 and 12 together, even though we're going to start in verse 12 today, and we're going to try to get through verse 18. I'm going to read these two together because it brings it into context. So Proverbs 5, 11 and 12 says, at the end of your life you will groan when your flesh and body are spent. Verse 12 now, you will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. And so we talked last night about why would someone in their young ages hate discipline, which is what it says here. Verse 12, you say, how I hated. Again, this is past tense. I'm assuming he's looking back, or Solomon is saying you will look back and you will regret you will regret not paying attention to the instruction in the discipline. And then the B part of verse 12 is how my heart spurned correction. And we looked at a lot of things last night. One of the things we looked at, we see that in Proverbs 22:15, it says that foolishness or folly is bound up in the heart of a child, and the rod of discipline will drive it out. So we realized that this type of thinking in a younger person, Solomon is addressing his young sons, who are probably, I wouldn't even dare guess how old they were. If I had to say, according to today's standards, maybe 13, 14, knowing that they're going to start becoming interested in the opposite sex, knowing that those drives are going to be there. And he's warning them how to manage and handle that. But again, this folly is built up. And as young men and women, we think, well, that won't affect us. That'll be for someone else. I'll be fine. This may hurt other people, but it won't hurt me. And so we have to understand that's the way it is with a young man or a young woman, because again, Proverbs 22 says that folly is bound up in the heart of a child. It's just the way that we're wired. Now the question becomes, at what point does that folly leave us? Well, a couple of things may determine that. One, what type of parenting did you have? Did your parents do things to try to train that out of you? And two, are you growing up? Are you becoming a man? Are you becoming a woman? Or are you just being irresponsible? But one of the things we talked about was this too. We talked about the responsibility that we have when we're instructing young people, whether it's as a parent, a grandparent, youth leader, young adult leader, friend or whatever, that we need to make sure we're doing the best that we can to present this information to them in a way that they would want to receive it. And we said that one of the things that we need to be really aware of is, somebody said this really well last night, make sure you're living what you're talking. Because these young kids, whether you're a parent, grandparent, doesn't matter, teacher, they will sense and they will sniff out hypocrisy. And so if you're teaching one thing and living another thing, that somehow comes through. And so we want to do the best that we can do when we're instructing these young children or these teenagers or young adults, that we're making what we're saying believable, that we're living a life not in perfection, that will cause them nothing in their lives to be able to reject what we're saying. Now, we also said that you can do that wonderfully, and because they have a free will, they can still reject it. And so but let's do our best to do that. So it says, you will say how I hated discipline, my heart spurned correction. Verse 13 goes along with this. I would not obey my teachers or listen to my instructors. Again, same thing there. Hopefully, that the reason they wouldn't listen to their instructors is because of their foolishness, not because the instructors were just terrible instructors. So I think we have a responsibility to do that. But Solomon is saying, you will look back and regret it if you don't pay attention to what I'm saying. You will grow up and then realize the destruction you've done in your life. So verse 14 says, I have come to the brink of utter ruin in the midst of the whole assembly. Again, this is Solomon saying you will look back. And so we kind of surmised that what it means, I have come to the brink of utter ruin, like the result of all these bad decisions. And I think in this particular case, in the context of the result of these bad sexual decisions, multiple partners, and we're going to see in the next few verses having these different women or these different men who are the fathers of all these different babies. That causes so much chaos. We saw last night that the strength of a home, of a community, of a church, of a state, of a nation, of the world, is ultimately the strong Christian-based family, one man, one woman for life, having children together and raising them as a husband and a wife. We also recognize that there are many instances where that doesn't happen or can happen, and I got to tell you, for churches, they need to step up and be the covering over those single women, and also single moms, because they don't have the full family. They don't have a husband to be with them. And so verse 14, I have come to the brink of utter ruin in the midst of the whole assembly. I think in the midst of the whole assembly means that some of these sins become public. It becomes clear that this one particular man has 3 kids through 3 different women. This one particular woman has 3 kids through 3 different men. And also what happens is this, we saw this last night, that we can become very bold in our sin. Right now we're living in a nation where things that the Word of God says shouldn't be happening, they're being celebrated. Like they are just literally being celebrated. It is out there, and everybody knows about it, and everybody celebrates and is proud of it. It is no wonder that we as a nation are in the mess we're in. But now we take a shift. Now we shift to verse 15 to 19, and this is the beauty of what a relationship should look like. So verse 15 says, drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. I'm going to read what I have here in my notes from last night on verse 15. The imagery of water here is refreshment. Your own cistern means your own wife or your own husband. Again, Solomon is talking to his sons, so this plays no difference. If he was talking to his daughters, it would be the same thing. So running water, because it talks about that in verse B. Drink water. I'll read Proverbs 5:15. Drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. So here, running water is clean, refreshing water. The sexual drive that men and women have can only be satisfied by your spouse, or there will be guilt, conviction, and consequences to it. This relationship, the relationship of a husband and a wife, should be enjoyed throughout the marriage, and then do not damage that relationship either by having an affair, pornography, or whatever. Because again, verse 15 says, drink water from your own cistern, running water from your own well. And then it goes on to say in verse 16, should your springs overflow in the streets, or your streams of water in the public fair? Well, again, this is talking about the procreation, and and the answer is obviously no. Verse 16, should your springs overflow in the streets, your streams of water in the public squares? No, it shouldn't. Again, this is talking about having multiple partners and, a man having 3 or 4 children through different women. I mean, look at the chaos that creates. Again, it destroys the family unit. Not only that, it destroys the individuals. And then verse 17 kind of says, in a sense, no, let them be yours alone, never to be shared with a stranger. And again, the word stranger doesn't mean someone you don't know necessarily, but it means someone other than God's way. It means other than your wife or other than your husband. They should be yours alone. The very best way to live life, the very best way to be in a relationship, other than friendship, is one man, one woman for life, and that husband and wife union develop children or procreate children. Now, when I say one man, one woman for life, I fully realize that even Scripture gives us certain indications or certain situations where divorce can happen, and then certain situations where divorce can happen and remarriage is an option. But here we see the devastation of doing it the wrong way, and we see, and we'll pick this up again next week, the beauty of doing it right way, because look at the next verse. It says, may your fountains be blessed, and may you rejoice in the wife of your youth. Again, he's talking to his sons. And then verse 19, a loving doe, a graceful deer, may her breasts satisfy you always. May you ever be captivated by her love. There was something, one of the translations said, may you be intoxicated by her love. That is what marriage should be. We'll pick those up next week. So glad you're here. I will be back Tuesday morning to do a recap of Sunday's message. Sunday's message is going to be entitled, There Was Only One Way to God. This is kind of picking up on what is your biblical worldview. But I trust that you'll have a wonderful rest of the day, and God bless.